There are two types of people: night owls and morning larks. Night owls go to bed late and morning larks go to bed early, but they are morning people. We will discuss health effects if bad timing affects our health. It's a very important question because people say that I sleep 8 hours per night and it does not matter if I go to sleep at 3 a.m. or 10 p.m. It does not matter if I sleep 8 hours per night in some. But study says different, and we will discuss these health effects of bad timing. We have large meta-analyses with more than 600,000 people, and the result was that late sleepers had 10% increased risk of mortality. So people who go bed late have 10% increased risk of death, regardless of cause of this death. So it shows tendency, it shows big picture that going to bed late affects our health importantly. We have no direct explanations. We have several explanations of these results. First explanation is that hormone melatonin. Hormone melatonin is released in darkness. It's our natural hormone which are released, and it promotes sleep. It is released in darkness, and when people is late person, when people is late sleeper, he has or she has lack of melatonin, and lack of melatonin can increase inflammation in the body. It can weaken immune system because melatonin also affects our immune system. It can weaken immune system and it can increase risk of chronic diseases, including cardiovascular disease. That's why it can be main explanation of this finding. Of course, there is many environmental factors which should be adjusted, but important finding is that low melatonin is important player. Also, people who are late sleeper usually experience more stress because they need to adjust their circadian rhythm, their sleep awakening rhythm, and they have more stress in the body, and chronic stress causes increased level of cortisol, which is stress hormone, and stress hormone also decreases immune system, and it also increases food intake, it increases appetite, it increases chronic inflammation in the body, and it increases risk of chronic disease. So main inflammation why people who are late sleeper die more easier than morning people is low melatonin level and increased inflammation. Second finding, important finding from studies, is late sleep increases risk of depression. People who are morning people and morning larks, they have less depression, 23% less depression. 23% less depression is important finding. Why it happens, we don't know. There is possible explanation that late sleeping decrease and affects melatonin, we already know it, and low melatonin also can affect serotonin level and dopamine level, and dopamine and serotonin affects our mood. Dopamine and serotonin are neurotransmitters in our brain, and they define our mental health and our mood also. Also, people who are late sleepers, they experience less exposure of sun, and it also can decrease level of serotonin because exposure to sun increases serotonin level, and it important player in developing depression. That's why that's a important another finding, that late sleep or night owl has increased risk of depression. This risk is not very high, but it's very significant statistically, because risk increase is around 23% around. Another finding is night owls has 70% increased risk of diabetes. It's very important finding. And metabolic disorder, metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome means insulin resistance, means risk of diabetes, risk of cardiovascular disease, risk of kidney disease. So it's very risk of obesity. It's very complex problem, and night owls has 70% increased risk of metabolic syndrome and diabetes and obesity. But it's important finding that people who are late sleepers usually they have less healthy lifestyle. They tend to eat non-healthy food, tend to smoke and drink alcohol, and they are more often obese, and they eat at night, and they eat more, and lack of exercise. So these environmental factors are very important, and if we adjust these environmental factors, we still get that there is still increased risk of diabetes and obesity around 90%. So pure risk because of late night sleep is around 19%, but unadjusted risk is much more. It's around 70%. 70% risk of metabolic syndrome and diabetes. So we can say that even pure night sleeper, and even this person sleeps 8 hours at night, and if this person sleeps normally, he or she still have some health risks, including cardiovascular disease, depression, metabolic syndrome, diabetes. Even we adjust environmental factors, even we adjust that both of them, for example, are exercising, both of them eating healthy, and etc. So it's very important finding. And let's say if there is any advantages of being night owl, yes, there is. First is that night owls have better mental stamina. They can do mental work much more harder compared to morning people. Another is that usually night owls are more intelligent people. It's another finding. There's many studies about it, that people who doing well at school and at university and they have highest scores, usually they are night people. And also night sleepers have more time for their hobbies, for example, for their creativity or music or reading or for their paintings. They have more time for their hobbies while others are sleeping. That's also another benefit. So being night owl carries some risk, but also it has some advantages. Although health risks are very real and very prominent, that's why maybe it's better to think if it's worth being night owl, but it also has its benefits, of course. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for your watching. If you like my videos, please thumbs up. If you like my channel, please subscribe. Thank you very much. Bye for now.